the speakers for this session will be Datuk Mohammad Khalid, as known as Datuk Lat. The moderator for this session will be Shafiqah Nabira.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Shafiqah Nabira, and I'll be your moderator for this session. So the session for today will be the role of arts and literature in shaping national identity. So there is a common problem affecting most developed nations today, because when we talk about development, we think about skyscrapers, we think about big buildings, we think about mega projects. But what we disregard when we talk about development is the finer and more introspective aspects of development. For example, the arts and literature. And we seem to forget that we do not build a nation just on stilts and metal and glass. So a nation is built on our shared stories and our common humanity. And here today is 3 prominent leaders from the fields of arts and literature, so that they can tell us their stories and share with us their role in building this national identity. So first is, as have been introduced, Tiara, Jacquelina, Dina Zaman, and Datuk Lat. So I will first start with a question for our panelists. So when talking about national identity, can you tell me what does national identity mean to you? And how has your work in the arts helped shape this national identity? So maybe Tiara, you can start.
Well, Dina. Hi everyone, good morning. I thought you all needed a little bit of a wake up. Actually, Dina and I were just having a chat earlier on in the holding room, and quite honestly, when we were saying that when we do the work we do, we never really think about anything like, you know, the impact this will have on the nation and on, you know, nation building and all that kind of big responsibilities when you're doing a project. When I set out to do a project, I just want to do the best film I can, or the best piece of theatre that I can. But it's nice to know, I guess, in a way, that it has contributed, or, you know. But really, for me, I guess national identity has to do with, like you mentioned, shared stories, our shared history, a shared culture, a shared past that we've all had together, which has shaped who we are today. But I believe a nation's identity is constantly evolving, and we need to constantly evolve. So what's most important for me is not about who we were or who we are today, but what sort of tomorrow can we build, or what sort of tomorrow can we aspire to build for the nation?
Okay, Dina, you might want to pick up on that point.
Okay, Assalamualaikum. Very good morning to everyone. I've got to say this is very intimidating. I organize closed-door forums for the Malaysian Insider, and they're all very tiny, you know. And there's all this whole lot of you here, and I'm supposed to talk about national identity.
It's just the hall that's big.
I mean, as you know, Tiara says, and I believe Datuk Lat also agrees, when we do our work, we don't go and think, okay, we're going to do this nation-building thing. We're going to change the world, this whole landscape of Malaysia. We just do what we have to do. So it's very surprising when you get academics, researchers, you know, young people like you come and say that, you know, your work has impacted the nation, and you go, what? But since you've asked me that, I suppose when you talk about national identity, the work that I do, I've got two columns. One in the Star where it's a bit frou-frou, and I do the serious work in Malaysian Insider. And I think some of you may have read a book I wrote about 7 years ago. And according to some lecturers, it deals with identity also. But anyway, national identity is, to me, is us asking who we truly are. Do we really understand our histories? It's an exploration, it's a journey, it's a lifelong journey. And I've always said to people, look, no matter what, how much you can do or you can't do, it is your responsibility to understand who you are, who your neighbor is, and what your country is made up of. I suppose we can just go on a bit more later, and I'll just pass the knee.
All right, so Datuk Lad, what do you think about national identity?
Thank you. I guess in my, from the way I look at it, a Malaysian identity would be something that foreigners would judge. You know, if they come and they say, that is Malaysian, then that's it. You see, because there are too many things that we see in our country that belong to the global scene. And when I first started work on my drawing books, you know, in the 70s, I was so proud of being from someone, you know, as a born in a kampung, someone born in a kampung, and my origin is the kampung. So to me, my origin is Kota Baru, Perak, which is a little village near Gopeng, and I drew a book about it in 1978, and it was published in 1979, featuring the house in which I was born. And that house is the traditional Perak house, what we call Rumah Bumbung Limas. From the top, you look at it, it looked like a cross, you know, like the Red Cross. Yeah, because that's the anjong, then the two wings, and the dapo. You know, but it is cute. It is if you look at the Kampung Boy book, which maybe you can still find, you'll find a drawing, and it's all drawn from memory because my father sold the land in the late 60s when we moved to Ipoh. So to me, that Perak house cannot be found in Pahang or Terengganu, or even, you know, Kampung Baru, because there are so many types of traditional houses. Each state has one. Rumah Melaka is strictly Melaka. You know, you don't find that sort of roof which is so steep. We were wondering how come, you know, these kampung people making steep roofs. You know, they must be expecting snow. You know, so. And beneath the house is so low, you have to stoop to, you know, there's no sense in you know, wasting that space. Whereas the Perak house is tall. You can stand under the house, there's a few jengkal above your head, you know, if you are standing, if you are being there. So I use that as the identity, because you cannot find it elsewhere. You can only find it here. And surrounded by, let's say Ipoh was surrounded by Chinese vegetable farms. And those houses also, to me, they are very unique. Today you can still find them, single-story wooden houses surrounded by vegetable farms or livestock, you know. And of course, near my kampung was an estate. My kampung was surrounded by estate. So many Indians were living in the estate quarters in those days until they moved out due to the pull of the city life. Their sons and daughters, grandsons and granddaughters eventually moved to become city people. I think that forms, you know, the identity for me. And I can safely show it to people from all over the world, because they will look at it and say, yeah, we've never seen this. They've seen houses on stilts in Scandinavia, but they all are made of logs, you know, and so it is different.
Okay, so picking up on that point that Datuk said about national identity being how people see us, I also think that to a certain extent it's about how we see ourselves. So Tiara, you've worked with and you founded the Enfiniti Academy for young people to learn about the arts. So how do you think that you have helped nurture this identity in young people about who they are as an artist, and how does your academy aid in helping these young people realize their own potentials?
Well, we set up an academy last year in April, and the intention was not at all to solely to develop dancers and singers and actors for the future, but really because of the work I do at Enfiniti, we produce films, we produce theatre, we produce TV shows. What's important for us, the next step, well, the first step was to try and bring people to the theatre, to try and get people to believe in Malaysian films and to believe in Malaysian theatre, to take the first step to actually buy a ticket to go and support something Malaysian. And we managed to somehow break through that barrier and get past that. The next, and after that, it was, for me, my job was to continuously produce shows of a decent quality, of a good quality, so that people continue to come and watch plays and films. And now that we've gone past those two steps, the next natural step for me was to see to the continuance of you know, this ecosystem of the arts, and that's why we built the Enfiniti Academy, because only when, I guess when you have, we need children who are the audiences of tomorrow to fall in love with the arts, so that they will be the supporters of the arts, they will be the performers, the thinkers, the patrons of the arts, and they will bring their kids, and you know, we're hoping that that's where the ecosystem will lie. But for us at Enfiniti Academy, what's more important than just training you to sing and dance and act is to we're hoping to train young minds to be creative, to be imaginative, to think beyond the confines of a theatre, to think beyond the confines of the words on a script, to just allow them to be free and just say, this is a safe space now for you. Create, think, and, you know, shape the world the way you think it should be.
So basically you believe that when it comes to the arts, not only artists should be involved in it, but even other the common man on the street also can realize their own artistic sensibilities. Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, I believe that the performing arts is one way in to actually opening people's minds to, you know, to try and be creative, because that's what Malaysia needs today. I mean, we have, in this room, I'm sure so many of you will end up being lawyers and engineers and doctors and teachers and, you know. But what Malaysia needs in order for us to make that paradigm shift, you know, to really transform the country, is creative minds, so that you will be the creative engineers, you will be the innovators of tomorrow, you're gonna discover new things and new ideas that's gonna just, you know, create that is what will transform Malaysia. That is what will bring us to the next level very quickly.
All right, thank you, Tiara. So picking up on that point about how we are trying to, how everyone, basically every citizen in this country is trying to propel Malaysia forward. So I'd like to ask Dina this question. So when we talk about this developing nation, so it's also about creating and nurturing a learning society. And a learning society is obviously a society who reads. So what do you think that is lacking about Malaysia when it comes to a reading culture? Because you can safely say that there's hardly a reading culture in Malaysia. So what's your take on that?
As I was listening to you, yeah? Okay, I'm just going to base this on the work that I do. It's so much easier. I'm not an artist, I'm not a creative person. But the creativity that comes in is when you have to deal with all the strange people that you deal with when you interview people and all, and the situations that I've been in. But the work that I do and the work that my colleagues do also requires not just creativity. And I think this is what we see and needs to be had, to be inculcated in every Malaysian is that we must not fear. You can be creative, but if you are fearful of this and that, you will not go anywhere. I'm not even talking about the fear of failure or success. The work I do deals with social religious issues. I wrote a book 7 years ago, got fried, got killed. I survived, had some supporters, but along the way, I'm still writing, about social religious stuff, and that's the substance and content for the second book. And I realized that not only do we have a fear of knowledge, we also have a fear of debating and engaging with others. And that is what worries me. To me, it doesn't matter whether you're a liberal, or conservative, or moderate, but the fact that you fear speaking up, your ideas, your thoughts. You can still stand out for your ideas, but why must you keep them quiet? Oh, I takut ni lah, I takut tu lah, oh, the liberals are so noisy, the conservatives are so loud. You cannot have that fear. You will never move forward. That's one. Two, all of you are, I suppose, at the upper echelons of, academic success. You're all very bright. I don't think that you will find any problem when you engage, debate, negotiate with your future colleagues at work. But the rest of Malaysia does not have that kind of privilege or that education or that space. They have not been trained to argue the way you all have, That's another thing that's very, very, very worrying. That we don't know how to argue and not kill each other and not be personal. You can be creative, but if you don't have that supportive environment where you're allowed to criticize without slandering each other, I don't know how the country can evolve or move ahead. Datuk?
Right, Datuk, do you have anything to add on that point?
This is about us expressing ourselves.
Yes, self-expression of the arts.
Well, I've been drawing for the last 40 years, so it's a routine thing, But the older I get, of course, I find difficulty in choosing whatever subject that I want to draw, and there's always that freedom there because I'm from that 1960s batch. We were looking for freedom even then, and we found it actually. But I'm not going to tell you because we would rather not talk about it. So in this country, I think we always have the freedom. We can express, and I'm a conservative myself, but I don't really, like you say, the conservatives are so loud. No, I'm very quiet. But yeah, I do look at society, and I would say this is the society that I'm with, and I have some, I have comments on them, and that's what I've been doing all this while.
So I think I can safely say that a lot of us in this room are familiar with characters from Kampung Boy and Scenes of Malaysian Life because I think we all grew up with your cartoons. So how do you think your stories, the stories that you created, help bring us together? Because in a lot of ways, I think when we read your cartoons, we learn how to laugh at ourselves, and we learn that everyone can be friends and create a good bond with each other as Malaysians. So how do you think your stories has helped in this respect?
Yeah, my stories are, my books, the cartoon drawings, the cartoon storybooks, I call them. They are there, they've been there, you know, and I don't look at things comparing them with my work. But this closeness thing is something we all should have. We must be close to each other. You know, because I can say that because I reach my old age, and I always in my room in Ipoh, you know, because my wife leaves me alone, you know, with my old DVDs and CDs, and I watch the old movies, and I like very much to stay in my Anjung, you know, and surrounded by quiet Ipoh life. So I look back, you know, and try to think about myself, because interviewers are very fond of asking, which one day you'll have to answer, what is the happiest moment of your life, if you can tell us. And you know, you reach old age and they ask you that, you know. And of course, I say, you know, you got to come back tomorrow because I got to think. And you know, the happiest moments usually are very private. You know, you don't want to tell people, but I think it does speak for us all, because you're going to end up asking yourself, you know, in the course of answering this, you'll be looking at your career, your personal life, everything. And so, when I got my drawings in the Asia magazine in 1974, my first cartoons in English is about Bersunat, you know, the circumcision ceremony, that I sent to Hong Kong. I was a reporter, but at the, you know, at the hospital, I found that the kids, the Malay boys, were circumcised in a very simple manner. They just come in the morning, and by noon they are back, you know, after a very simple surgery, minor surgery. Whereas in my case, I had to lie down on the floor, on the mat for 2 weeks, you know. So I did the story and recap. So when the magazine came out, you know, I was still a reporter, and was that the happiest moment in my life? And later on, I realized no, that wasn't it. Well, was it when I first looked at my comic book when I was 13? It was published by Sinaran Brothers, Penang. I was living in Ipoh, and it was published, it's called Tiga Sekawan Menangkap Pencuri, oleh Lad, bracket, Mohammad No, bracket, Ipoh. Could be nobody else, eh? And it was sold for 35 cents. I was riding all over Ipoh on my bicycle to show everybody. And was that the happiest moment? Actually, no, because it's not related to, I mean, you can't be happy with work alone. I mean, there was a child, my son has written books, you know, so how do we look at it? Because eventually we will realize that how close you are with people, that's it. You have friends? How many? Close friends? How many? Who are they? What race? Do you go to their houses? And then do they like you? What do they like about you? You know? You keep on borrowing their CDs? Or in my case, you know, I borrow records. We exchange records and comics. You know, so that makes up the whole thing. And when we are close, when we are very close, that's the only time we can criticize each other. But if we are far away, we got walls surrounding us, you can't say a word. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Datuk Lad. So basically, Datuk Lad was telling us about how important like traditional values and the traditional way of life that we have, and we shouldn't forget it, even though we're a rapidly developing country. So the next question is for Tiara.
Wait, sorry, if I can just jam a little bit on based on that. I think if you ask me what I feel is our Malaysian identity, if we do have one, it's the fact that we are a country that is multicultural, and we really need to think about how we can use this to our strength, and make it our strength in moving forward. This is what makes Malaysia unique, and we should celebrate this and not try to. Our nation is already, there's so many things, so many elements that divide us already today, things that never used to divide us in the past. I used to go to a school where my friends were Chinese and Indian, Malay, Eurasian. Now, people go to Chinese schools, to Malay schools, to Indian schools. And when you grow up, you go to university. Again, I see whenever I visit Malaysian students studying abroad, all the Malay girls are in one pack together. All the Chinese girls stick together. All the Indian boys stick together. You go overseas also, you don't even try and assimilate with a different culture. So when you bring back that culture here today, you're guilty of this here today, aren't you? Look at who you're sitting next to today. How many of you are sitting next to someone of a different race? A few, okay, I can see yes. But, really, for me, I can speak because number one, I myself am made up of many different heritages, and proudly that way. But, guys, I'm imagining why we're talking about nation building today is because you kids are the student leaders of tomorrow, and you will make the difference in Malaysia tomorrow if there is any hope at all. So really, what can you do about this? Datuk Lat is talking about how can you learn to develop that trust amongst each other, and it's not too late at all for this country to start today. Assimilate and try and get a... Can you imagine what kind of... Oh my God, I can't imagine I'm having this kind of a conversation. Can you imagine what kind of a Malaysia we would be if all of us really just got together, all of us really united in heart and soul, and just think about what can we do for this nation? What can we do for our country? Not for my race, not for any political party, but what good can I do as a Malaysian for my flag, for my country?
All right, thank you, Tiara. Dina, picking up on that point, since both Tiara and Datuk Lat has been talking about how we can move forward based on our common identities and our shared history, I'm really interested in how the arts and literature can figure in this common history of ours. So, what do you think about the idea of having a Malaysian literature? For example, if we talk about Indonesia, you can mention a writer like Pramodia, and everyone from the intellectual to the common man on the street would know who Pramodia is. But in Malaysia, for example, if we mention someone like Usman Awang, he might not be as widely read as Pramodia is in Indonesia. So why do you think that is in Malaysia? How come our own writers get so little recognition from our own citizens?
Is the Minister of Education here or anything?
I don't believe so.
Okay. I would have to say that the education system in Malaysia has changed tremendously. I come from a generation, whether you're from the science stream, commerce stream, or science rumah tangga, and arts and all that, right? Where Sastra Melayu and English literature was already ingrained. It was part of our syllabus. So whether you liked it or not, whether you understood Sastra Melayu, hatta sana, hatta sini, kan? I failed, man. I was just like, apa benda dia cakap ni, Sejarah Melayu tu. Yeah, but we came from that generation where it didn't matter which stream you were from, you had to do it, and if you didn't do it, you fail. If you didn't pass your Bahasa Sastra, not Bahasa Melayu, you know, or your English literature, your creative writing, we had this literature, and then God, how many years ago? 30 years ago, tuanya. But we had that, you know, so you can't blame that the current generation now of not knowing who our writers are, because we don't have that in Auni. But at the same time, I don't think we're a lost cause lah. You've got people like Sharon Bakar, Amir Mohammad, who are pushing for literature. I mean, they're doing the best that they can. So you have little pockets, you know, you've got the hipster crowd who reads this. You've got the traditionalists who only read Usman Awang. You've got the English ni. There are also like Chinese writers, Tamil writers, but they all work in little pockets. How are we going to get them together? It's not so easy because, again, a lot of things nowadays are politicized. Is it healthy? No, it's not healthy. But that's the status quo lah. But we have to find ways, solutions where we can all work together. I'm not going to touch on DBP. I'm not very well versed on Dewan Bahasa Pusaka now. My time in the 90s when it first came out, there was a lot of things going on in Dewan Bahasa Pusaka. We had a lot of readings with writers from other languages. But now it seems to be pretty much dead, unless, you know, things are happening, I don't know. I think writing, and I'm going to be talking about this for the next one, for your other program on August 4th. Apart from theatre, apart from drawing cartoons, writers do play a very important role. When you talk about the human condition, it doesn't matter whether you're writing about the Chinese history or a Chinese story. If the human condition, the human emotion, the human situation is similar, I think people of other races would empathize with that. So we need a lot of writers. I know a lot of parents think, you know, if you become a writer, you probably die, you know, you'll be penniless, that do it. My parents said the same thing to me, kan? And it's kind of true because you don't make money as a writer or a researcher. But you do have a role to play. I have to say this, we people in the media, we're really, really poorly paid for the money and for the stress that we go through. But, you know, we are the forerunners who go out there, kena tembak by politicians, my God, being followed by special branch. I had an adventure with them, you know. But we are the ones who are writing about the little people, the common man's dreams, you know. We get abused a lot, we reporters. Oh, you're probably, you know, UMNO punya payroll lah. Oh, you're with PKR lah. You're like, oh, just trying to do work lah. But we are here to tell you what's happening on the ground. And those little stories, you know, these are the ones that's telling the nation what is happening. Do not discount the media, whether it's alternative or mainstream. At the end of the day, if you don't have us, you would know what's going on at home. I mean, what's going on in our own homes. The crime, the water ration, anything. I wish there was a lot more in the media right now that talks about culture, the anthropology of our histories, religion, our traditions. But we don't really do that now. Maybe it's not very sexy. Maybe, you know, advertisers don't want to sponsor that page. I don't know why. But writers do play a very important role. Whatever language, whatever backgrounds they come from, I hope there'll be more support for, you know, for us, so that we can tell your stories to Malaysia and, you know, inshallah, the world.
Okay, so I think we can all agree that there needs to be a greater awareness about the role of the arts and how it's very, very important in nation building. So we'll now move to the Q&A session, but before that, Datuk Lat would like to show some of his works. So maybe...
But before that, I'll just add on to, you know, what we just heard. This is what I drew last night, because it's one of those drawings that you can do anytime, you know. So I saw this, you know, promo for a very nice business class travel This is picture, of the latest, aircraft. But you travel business class, you can sleep, you can lie down and sleep, but it looked like a box. So I thought, if this, from various different views, you can be in a box even on the ground, without flying the latest plane. But this will be out tomorrow, so you're the first to see it today.
All right, thank you, Datuk Lad, for sharing your drawing with us. So I'd now like to open the questions to the floor. Can we start with the lady?
So, how can we overcome this kind of perception and lack of appreciation that Malaysians might have on literature and maybe just arts like painting and traditional dances as well? Not many can tell the difference between zapin and dabos. Like, who knows what's a zapin, what's a dabos? No? Okay. So, how can we overcome this and how can we make people fall in love with the arts?
All right, so if anyone wants to pick up on that point.
I think unfortunately, it's back again to the education system that we are faced with today. I do not believe that the arts feature very, very strongly in the list of our curriculum today. I would love to see, okay, maybe I'll just rephrase that and say, I would love to see a lot more emphasis and a lot more importance being placed on literature and painting and performing arts and drama, especially in schools today, because I very, very strongly believe that with a very strong foundation in the arts in general, we will actually be shaping much smarter, much more creative, much more imaginative leaders of tomorrow. So I believe your problem is because there is no emphasis and everyone seems to think that those subjects are for those who are not very clever in science and maths and anything else. So then you go and study literature. So it's not your father's fault either. Society has formed that opinion of artists that we are, the lowest echelons of society and therefore we should be the last choice. Only if you really cannot work as anything else, then you go and learn to do your zapin and join Istana Budaya and be a dancer for the rest of your lives. But really, this is the fault of the education ministry. And I hope like Datuk Lat, I have lived quite a few years as well, so I'm entitled to this kind of an opinion. But it is my hope and my dream that thank you for the slides, that every child should be free and every child should be entitled to learn the arts as part of a curriculum, not an extracurricular activity, but drama should be part of the subjects everyone studies in school. Sastra and literature should be part of everything you study in school. Every child must learn art as a very serious subject, and the Ministry of Education needs to see the importance of this and needs to see why it is that our kids have to be creative as well as good in science and maths.
All right, thank you, Tiara. If anyone would like to add up on that? Okay,
Thank
so
you.
I'll take the next question from the gentleman on my right side, please.
Or any one of the panelists. We're talking about role of the arts in nation building, yeah? So I would like to ask, what's your take on the current Malaysian film industry, where I believe that sometimes I feel like I want to support watching all these films, but sometimes when we watch these films, I'm kind of disappointed in them, For example, I can point out few names, like Cinta Photocopy, Aku Ada, Kau Ada, or some line beyond that, but yeah, what's your take on Malaysian film industry?
Do we really only have 5 minutes, or do we have longer?
Yes, we do.
Do not completely blame you, because I must say that the Malaysian film industry is in its infancy still, and if after all these years, you know, since P. Ramlee, after P. Ramlee and, you know, post P. Ramlee, we have been struggling to find a voice for Malaysian film and trying to make good films, I guess. And every now and then...
The public's not ready.
Huh?
The public is not ready.
Well, it's not, yeah, who do you...
Some of them have died already, you know, without seeing any good Malaysian movies.
And who do we blame for that, for shaping the mentality of the public, for what kind of films they want to watch? Yeah, well, you see, unfortunately, it's a chicken and egg situation in filmmaking. You make a good film, if no one watches it, it's not considered a good film. It's not a successful film. But some filmmakers have identified that a certain kind of film attracts a huge audience. So they have to keep it's a bread and butter situation. They need to keep they need to continuously make money so they can make new films. So they perpetuate the situation by producing films of that caliber.
All right, thank you, Tiara. I can take the last two questions, one from the gentleman at the back and one from the gentleman at my right side. Can you give your two questions so that the panelists can...
It's about nation building. So I want to ask, I hope all panelists can give your opinion. What do you expect from us, the youth today, to build a nation, to shape the nation? Means like to achieving to 2020 or what? And also just now Datuk was asking, what are the happiest moments of your life? So I would like to ask the other panels, what is the happiest moment of your life, if you don't mind to share? Thank you.
Right,
thank you,
happiest
moderator.
moment of your lives. The happiest moment of your life.
Oh my God.
To build a nation.
I'll answer the other question first, not the happiest moment. I think as a researcher, for me, I find it very frustrating that I cannot find real histories of the communities in Malaysia. We have historians, but we don't have enough. I'm trying to find out about Chinese history, which is related to the work that I do. And unless it's very political, it's about the tin mining and all, you don't hear anything else. That also goes for the Indian and all. We don't have that history of archiving, documenting, and writing histories. They're mostly textbooks. So that's what I would like from the new generation. I mean, apart from, fighting for the world, being a lawyer, maybe after work you can write a history book, do research. We need that because we don't have that at all. Happiest moments of our lives.
Just a short one.
There's just too many, I think.
There's one short one, like a really memorable moment from your life.
I suppose for me that I can remember offhand was when I lived with Bobo Hizan last year. I stayed with Bidayu Priestess, and it was during Gawai. I lived with them. I actually stayed in one of those huts and longhouse, not really long, this is exactly where all the priestesses were there, and they were playing with the gongs and all that, and they had very interesting food. It wasn't a matter of halal or haram, but I was going, how am I going to eat chicken feet? It's a bit too exotic for me. But seeing a culture, a community that is already dying out, I spent about 3 nights there, seeing pigs being slaughtered, I thought, that was when I thought, you know what? I'm actually very grateful living in Malaysia, because I know in other countries you have different experiences, but how many of us get to stay in Rumah Orang Bomo, Bidayu, seeing all this thing, happening for the next 3 days of our life? I thought that was pretty cool.
Okay, so we have time for one last question. Can I have it from the gentleman at the back, please?
Hi, thank you, moderator, for my art. So, often or not, I found out that when it comes to the arts, regardless of theatre performance, your PM always judge. Always do your production based on your finance.
Sorry, I can't hear you. Can you?
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm Thomas from Nottingham, Malaysia.
Slow down.
I'm sorry. So, often or not, I found out that, okay, when it comes to production, your PM usually look into finance, how much you're going to sell tickets. When you look into drawing a cartoon or writing, you're always being judged about how many books you can sell and publish. And my problem is not about the finance, but more of why arts, the development of arts is being judged based on a scientific scale where there must be an output to be viewed at how quality is the art is. Why not we just abolish exam for literature? For example, you just write an essay, if your teacher is happy with it, you pass. Instead of you need to have a grade A, B, and C to judge, okay, this is a good piece of artwork that you should read, or no, this is bad because it's insensitive or it's not mature enough. So
okay, thank you.
I share this sentiment.
If the panelists can pick
we
up
change
that,
that
question,
actually?
There's only so much I can do
we
from
like
my
to share
corner.
we like to share some policies, or maybe not even policies, but grassroots work that you would like to implement, should you be the education minister one day, that you like to implement. Just enlighten us, since it's the last question.
Okay, thank you for the question. So, anyone wants to pick up on that point?
Yeah.
Just a very brief answer.
Yeah. And artwork being valued with the value of artwork with money. Yeah. So if you are an artist, a writer, a cartoonist, you deal with the public. The number one group that you really have to please is the public, is the readers, those people who read or look at your drawings, or those people who buy your books, and you have something you want to give them, and you are giving them your best work. Best when you were 19 years old, best when you were 25 years old, you give your best. The reward for it, you have to negotiate with the publisher, with the producer. That doesn't mean anything to the public because they want the best, they want the gems from you. And are you willing to give it to them? Do you want to think about money? If you want to think about money, you go into business. If you want to write, you want to do artistic work, don't think about money, especially if you are a beginner. You write and you produce, you present your best. People are going to like it. They find it appealing. They find that it's not hurting their feelings. They find that it's not hurting their grandfather's feelings. You know, you must respect people. Then only they respect you. You must write something that is good in your books or in your drawings. I went to a Punjabi wedding in Kampung Pandan. I had to spend one whole afternoon at a temple because I loved what I was doing. I made new friends and I drew about it. It came out in the papers. The Sikh community in Malaysia, they were so happy. They say, how did you know about all this? Well, because I went there, I talked to people, I went to visit, to meet their families, relatives, and I knew if I were to write it, nobody would read. But if I draw about it, it's so easy to understand. So you got to make people love you, you know. And once they love you, you're okay. If you make some people happy, some other parties are sad, some others are angry, you are not really actually reaching out to the world. You only want to be famous among a few, you know, and that won't last.
Okay, thank you, Datuk Lad. I can safely say that your cartoons have made us, all of us, happy over the years. Okay, so I'm sorry, but that's all the time that we have. I'd like to thank each of our panelists today for giving us such a brilliant session. So thank you, round of applause for panelists, please.
Thank you. Now I would like to call Izzat Al-Hadri to give a token of appreciation. He's the UKEC Vice Chairman.
I think the girls talk more. Didn't have a chance.